Recording in progress.
Hi, Sonali.
Hi, Father Sunil. So good to see you. Hi, Smeetha.
Hi.
So good to see you.
Yes, congratulations once again.
Thank you so much. I'm getting an echo for some reason.
I have a problem with my computer. It's going on and off. So I'm also on the phone and it's a bit difficult.
Yeah.
I hope it's success.
Okay. Fingers crossed. I'm sure it will, Smeetha.
I really hope. Because now it's in blinking mode. It's going black. So I'm speaking on the, on my phone. And I tried to, before it went like that, I tried to make you a co-host. But before I did that, it started blinking. Now, when I can't make you a co-host, so that you could, kind of, anyway, I'm managing the people part, but I think there is an echo happening.
There is an echo, that's all, yeah.
I think if I may, I think if you can mute Smeetha, I have a suggestion. If you can mute one of the devices.
That's what once it comes back now, my screen is blank. The moment it comes on, I'll mute it.
You can reduce the volume to absolutely minimum if you've got those volume shortcuts.
Okay. Oh, thank God.
Yes, that worked. Okay. Oh, phew. Okay. Thank you, Dima.
Not at all.
Okay. Hi, Miss Chander, is that you?
Yes, hello, Sonali. I'm so happy that I could join in. So proud of you, looking gorgeous.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining. So good to hear your voice after all these years.
Oh, thank you.
Smeetha is the host. She's the everything of this organization, Women Empowered India. Smeetha, this is Miss Chander, my teacher all the way back from school, from high school.
Wow. That's wonderful.
Hello.
Welcome to you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be part of it. So proud of Sonali.
Yes.
Smeetha, do you need me to turn my video off or something for now? Should I turn off video for now? Okay. I can't hear you.
Do you want the participants to mute their thing? Do you want me to mute it?
Yeah, that might help, Ms. Chanda, but that I think once more people join, that's usually a problem. So yeah, it's probably best if participants mute their video and audio. Thank you.
Sonali?
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay.
Yes. Smeetha?
Yeah.
So once after I speak, may I ask, do you want me to directly go ahead to introducing Professor Sudha Rai?
Yeah.
Okay, so nothing in between, right?
No.
Okay.
Baisali and Paramita, are you here? Good evening, Professor Lal.
Good evening, Professor Lal.
Good evening.
Hi, Ananda. Good to see you.
Good to be here.
Thank you so much for joining. Thank you.
No, it was possible. I may not be able to stay that long though, Sonali, because I have a play that I have to watch.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. Your presence right now is enough for me. There would have been no book had it not been for you.
No. There would have been no book without you, the poet.
That's true as well. Thank you so much. Means a lot to me.
Thank you for creating that wonderful book.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Beautiful.
I've been getting a lot of messages about how beautiful each book looks, just the touch and the feel. Yeah. Lots of people have been writing.
Each is a work of art.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Thank you.
We should be starting in a short while.
Okay.
Smeetha, your voice is still echoing. Would you like to switch off your other source? Would that help?
It is muted. The computer is muted. I'm now speaking on the phone.
Okay. Maybe if you were to use headphones, that would eliminate the echo. If you have a pair of headphones.
Just let me try something. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Lily.
Hi, how are you, Smeetha? Good to see you. It's trying to get across. Is this okay? I mean, can you guys see me all right? Is the light okay? Hi, Sonali. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for joining. Wonderful to see you.
Congratulations. It's such wonderful. It's a great time to be together, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Let me look at you with my glasses before I start pretending that I can see you. So good. Very nice. Very nice.
Looking forward to hearing your poetry at the end of the
Yes,
session.
later in the evening, God willing. Very nice. That's a beautiful name for a book, and I'm grateful that Smeetha got me on board.
Thank you so much. In fact, I was hoping to speak a little bit about the title of the book because, yeah, it is deceptively, warm, and the book is not all that. It's a hybrid kind of book. It's it's many things. So we often assume flowers are, just beautiful, but there's a lot more.
Where are you joining from? Smeetha is coming from Kolkata. And
I'm in Ahmedabad, Gujarat. Yes. Yeah.
So are you Guju or are you Odia?
No, I am Odia, but unfortunately, I've only lived about 5 years in Orissa, and then, I'm sort of diasporic in that sense, Lily. I've lived all over Bombay, and then Egypt, and Mussoorie, and Delhi. Yes, in fact, my high school teacher from Mussoorie, my boarding school, is here as well with us. Yeah, she could join. Yeah.
Woodstock? No.
Yes, it was Woodstock indeed. How did you guess that? Yes.
Good evening, Paramita.
Hello. Good evening.
Hi,
Good
Paramita.
Good evening. Congratulations, Sonali. So good to meet you here.
Thank you so very
much.
much.
I read your lovely bio. Lily ji, good evening.
Thank you.
I didn't know you had so beautiful hair, Lily ji. Wow, look at your length. I always had very bad hair, so I'm fascinated with good hair.
My mother, for all the coconut oil she put and braided it tight with red ribbons.
Oh, wow. My mother tried her best, but my hair didn't listen to her.
Yeah, and a lot of it is inherited. I think with hair, a lot of it is just biology, honestly. I used to have good hair and I'm losing hair a lot. Probably after COVID, a lot of people have told me that that's one of the post-COVID symptoms, to lose hair. I'm losing hair. So yes, beautiful hair. And Smeetha also has very beautiful hair. I've always admired her.
Yeah, Smeetha has good hair, very nice hair. Yeah. So do you.
Thank you so much. So do you. All kinds of hair is beautiful. And there is a poem about hair in my book as well.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's cool.
Yes. We have a direct relationship with hair, women especially, I think.
Yeah. You really got me on that, Sonali, the hair, when I read that poem.
You read that? Wonderful.
Yes, wiry ringlets. That was so wiry.
Yes, I shall weave myself a wig to wear. Absolutely.
Right, that's the last line. I read it too.
Thank you so much, Father Sunil. Yes, and it almost feels like, what is such a poem doing there? But then that's also, the poet persona self, I think. We're all so many people, so many different people at one time. So yes. And I have much to say about hair, honestly. I wish Steffi, another colleague of mine, she was joining us. I have had long conversations about why we focus on hair so much and why it's such an integral part of women's identity. And Hi, Professor Jain. So good to have you.
Hello.
After all these years, thank you so much for gracing the occasion with your presence.
It's my pleasure, Sonali.
Means a lot to me. Just to hear your voice after all these years.
Good evening, Sonali, and a big congratulations.
Hi, Fakya. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome. In fact, when you guys were talking about the hair, and I have actually marked it in the book of yours, apart from Bleeding, that's my next favorite about hair and the wig. So remarkable job. It's been very many years that we spoke, but I'm very happy. I'm very happy for you.
Thank you.
Big congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yes. yeah, in fact, what I was saying is that why this obsession with a certain kind of hair, and yeah, how it relates to notions of beauty, and what happens when we get sick and we lose hair, and how that affects women's sense of self. I think about these things all the time. And so that poem came from that kind of a space, actually.
Absolutely remarkable, because it really touches, I think, the body, the hair, and, everything with the body, the fluid. It's really, really touching.
Yeah.
Wait, I'll just show you my face for a while.
Yeah, since we're talking about bodies. Hi, Papya. Hi, so good to see you. I think I lost you.
Papya, you are muted.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. It has been a long day. I've been taking classes and cooking. And I said, no, I have to make it today. So I just have to say
thank you so much.
With your most, I'm so happy. Please don't thank me. I'm really, really glad to be a part of this journey. I'm so glad. All the best. And thank you all the lovely ladies. Hello. I'm so glad to meet all of you.
Where are you joining from?
I'm joining from Delhi. I'm in Jawaharlal Nehru University. I teach there. But me and Sonali taught for quite some times together in Kirori Mal College, Delhi University, where I think she was teaching. She taught for about
3 years.
5, 6, 7, how many years?
Just 3 years.
3 years, right? And I taught for 10 years, but we joined together.
Yes, we did.
Have here today, yeah.
And Lily, you were joining from Chandigarh. Oh, wonderful. So Miss Chandar is also joining from Chandigarh. My high school teacher I mentioned from Woodstock. Shonila Chandar, she's here. Yeah, she's also joining from Chandigarh. She told
me. Cold, still cold and gloomy in the
Hi,
north.
Miss Chandar.
Thay is here. Hi.
Hi, Sonali. I'm joining.
Hi, Anjali. Hi, thank you so much for joining.
You're welcome.
Hi, Sonali.
Pleasure
How are
to be
you?
here.
Hi, Shweta. Thank you so much for joining.
Anytime, please. You don't have to thank me. I mean, come on. Thank you for writing such lovely words and putting it all together.
I'm so glad it resonates with you. Yeah, you've always been there for my poetry, as so many of you have. Thay especially, so many of you, really. I'm so grateful. Because when I was writing, I never saw this day that it would all come together in a book. I was just writing to survive, really. Most of the time I was writing to put something out there, and then transpired into a book finally.
But it's the best kind of writing when you do it for yourself and not for anyone else. So
Thank you. It's hugely cathartic, isn't it, for so many of us?
Very true. Yeah. It is.
Hi, Sonali. This is Jenny. I'm joining from Bhubaneswar.
Hi,
Surprise.
Hi, thank you so much for joining. Hi.
Hi, Miss Chandar and Chin Chin. I'm seeing all these Woodstock faces here as well.
Hi, Jenny.
Hi.
I don't know if
Sonali, Shobha.
Hi, Shobha.
Hi. I'm going
to. Oh, there's Miss Chandra. I can see her.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, did I cut into someone else speaking? No. Sonali, just a quick hi and congratulations, Shobha. This is Shobha.
Thank you so much, Shobha, for joining. Means the world to me. Means the world.
Looking forward. Okay.
Is there Smeetha, is there something I can do to see everybody? Is that in view? I don't know. I'm always.
You go to the top right.
View and make it gallery view.
Gallery, right. Okay. Yeah. Now I see everybody. Oh, Professor Rai is also here. Hi. Hi. Thank you so much.
Hi, Sonali.
Hi.
Not bring cash. 81 rupees.
Hi, Miss Hoffman. Thank you so much for joining. Hoffman, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you so much for joining.
Congratulations, Sonali. Congratulations.
Thank you, Ms. Hoffman. Thank you so much.
Joining from St. Paul, Minnesota, where it's still dark and I'm in my bed.
Oh, it's late at night, yes.
Early morning.
Early morning. Yeah.
I hope you don't feel like you have to stay for too long.
No, I'm anxious to hear the whole thing.
Wonderful.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hoffman. Thank you. I can see Ms. Chandra. Hi, Baisali.
Hi, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Hello, Miss Hoffman.
Hello, Ms. Chandra.
I just sent a message. I am recovering from COVID, so I'm in isolation. I will go further than I had planned to.
Oh, I had no idea, Ms. Chandra.
No, that's fine. It's my pleasure. I'm very happy I could be a part of it. Yeah. And many congratulations.
Wish you a very speedy recovery. Feel well, take lots of rest.
Thank you.
We are ready to start. So I think I shall begin in another 2 minutes. Okay. Everybody is almost here, so we are ready. I'm just waiting for Shweta Garg to show, and then I'll start in 1 or 2 minutes.
Hi, I'm here already, Smeetha. Hi.
Hi, Shweta.
Hi, Sonali. How are you?
Good. Lovely to see you.
Same here.
We are ready to start, so I shall begin. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us at the week-long celebration of Sonali Pattnaik's debut collection of poetry, When the Flowers Begin to Speak, published by Writers' Workshop. This book embodies the poetic transformation of all that was chaotic, confusing, difficult, and heartbreaking into something beautiful that one can hold in one's hand tenderly and with love. It symbolizes what poetry and perceived beauty can offer us, an abundance of light and transformation of the spirit, mind, and this book has come into being after living through turbulent times of strife, uncertainty, fear, and loss, being blessed with infinite hope. It carries in it the beauty of hope and the power of love. It shows us how grief can be transformed in slow steps into something beautiful. It shows the transformation in slow, mesmerizing steps of a poet, an artist, a person, into a being of greater resilience and understanding. This book is what every creative endeavor strives to achieve. Big congratulations to Sonali and her publisher, Writers' Workshop. Now I have the pleasure of presenting a poem from the book, page 106, in the form of a song.
I'm sorry to interrupt, okay? There is a lot of echo. So other than Sonali, can we all turn off our microphone, please? Because this is beautiful and we would want to hang on to every word you say, Smeetha.
Okay, can I start the song?
Smeetha, sorry to interrupt. Smeetha, do you have your mobile just beside you? I think that's
I'm
causing the
speaking on the
echo.
mobile. Everything else is muted. So I'm
Okay,
on
yeah.
the mobile only.
Okay, 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 yeah.
So this is a poem from page 106 of the beautiful book, When the Flowers Begin to Speak. For wings to take shape, there must be first woo. For wings to take shape, there must be first woo. And then there be flowers, and then there be flowers, and then there'll be endless time, single love drenched. Ah, for wings to take shape, there must be first woo. If you how the new for wings to take shape, there must be first wound. And with this, I come to the beautiful moment of extending a very warm welcome to our dear professors, poets, writers, authors, friends, family, and well-wishers. The program will unfold like this. The first event is the launch of the book led by Baisali Chatterjee Dutt. This is followed by a small icebreaker.
Just sorry to interrupt again. We can't hear a single word. So I think Lily, can you please mute yourself? Let's see if that works. And Smeetha, can you see if there is anything, if you're using an audio jack, you wanna remove and replug it?
I didn't.
And if you could please use headphones, that will solve the problem, I think.
Rita, we can see you two places, so I think that is causing something.
If you could move one of the gadgets away.
Yes, yes, Smeetha.
Just tell me, is it working now?
No, you're more audible, but there is an echo still.
Okay, just give me a few minutes to figure this because I'm muted on the computer. So it seems unmute is not working, is it?
Even if you're muted, it will echo as long as you're logged in from two devices. That is the problem. You only need to log in from one device. The moment you are logged in from two devices or anybody else is logged into the same meeting from another device, no matter how many times you muted, it's going to echo.
Okay,
so you'll have to log off of one device.
I close the computer browser and keep my fingers crossed that it's still on. Yeah?
From
yes,
the phone.
maybe that works.
Yeah,
maybe that will work.
Very smile.
And in the meantime, if everyone else mutes, I think Lily, I can see a Lily and you're not muted. So.
Okay, so I'm just closing. I'm pressing the cross tab on the com so that it closes the Zoom session. Yeah? I'm very nervous doing this. So keep your fingers crossed, please. I can do one thing. Let's move ahead because I don't have too much to speak after this. So can I just hand it over to Baisali? Yeah? That'll be better.
Yes.
Okay. So Baisali, it's over to you now.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. Can you hear me properly, everyone? Am I okay? Yeah, okay. Great, fantastic. All right. Okay, first of all, thank you, Smeetha, for having me. It is such an honor and a pleasure to be doing this, to be introducing Sonali Pattnaik's beautiful, wonderful book, When the Flowers Begin to Speak. Sonali, I've read a few poems and I've just been transported. They are so young, they are powerful, they are gentle, they are sweet, they are strong, they are resilient, like flowers after a rainstorm. So congratulations on your beautiful, beautiful book. Congratulations on your Orange Poetry Award. We are so proud to know you and we are so proud to be doing this for you. And on behalf of we begin the launch of When the Flowers Begin to Speak by Sonali Pattnaik. Today joining me is Paramita, Somrita, Neha, and Smeetha, of course. We begin with a few lines. I take it over to Paramita.
When the flowers begin to speak, my heart responds.
When the flowers begin to speak, children dance.
Somrita?
Be a bit late.
When the flowers begin to speak, the sky listens.
When the flowers begin to speak, birds sing.
Women smile.
When the flowers begin to speak, women smile. In short, when the flowers begin to speak, the world rejoices. And so, when the flowers begin to speak, we celebrate. There's excitement in the air because there are so many flowers speaking today. And most importantly, Sonali's flowers will speak today. Congratulations, Sonali. You are blessed to have your revered professors, seniors, peers, friends, family, and a score of well-wishers here at this special moment with you. We wish you every success and a host of adoring readers who will read and cherish your poetry for ages.
Thank you.
Congratulations,
Thank you
Sonali.
so much. Thank you.
And with that, it is now my pleasure and my honor to introduce Dr. Paramita Mukherjee Mullick, who is a national scholar transformed into an internationally acclaimed award-winning poet. A little bit of trivia for some of you who may not know this. Recently on Valentine's Day, in fact, this Valentine's Day, Tips Volume released a video of Paramita where Anup Jalota ji himself sings an English song for the very first time in his career, based on Paramita's poem, Love Grows. And she recites the poem in the background as well. Congratulations, Paramita. When I read this and I found out, I got very excited. I have to look this up on YouTube. I hope it's available on YouTube. Paramita has 8 books to her credit, and her poems have been widely published in India, in Indian and foreign journals, and so many of her poems have been translated into 39 languages to be exact. She has started and is the president of the Mumbai chapter of the Intercultural Poetry and Performance Library, known quite popularly as IPPL. She promotes indigenous poetry, multilingual poetry, and global poetry. Dr. Paramita Mukherjee Mullick, over to you.
Thank you so much for such kind words, Baisali. And I'll just start with a big congratulations to Sonali. What a wonderful name and what a wonderful book. Wishing you all success and a huge, huge readership all over the world, Sonali. Now in Bengali, we say Chader Hat Bosheche. That is, we have a stellar presence here for your book launch, Sonali. So I would love to mention all these great people who are here today to listen to you, to listen to your poems, and to listen to your view about your wonderful book. So here are the dignitaries: Professor Indira Nityananda, Professor Udaya Kumar, Professor Manju Jain, Professor Shobha Ghosh, Professor Arjun Appadurai, and myself, and Smeetha Bhoumik, Somrita Urni Ganguly, Tasir Gujral, Nishat Haidar, Amita Paul, Neha Mishra Jha, and of course our dear Baisali Chatterjee Dutt. Sweta Rao Garg, Candice Louisa Daquin, Dr. Thei Cadets, Professor Arjun Appadurai, sorry, I've mentioned him already, and Professor Anjali Montero, Professor Jonathan Darksen, Kanav Gupta, Nidhi Kalra, Samin Ali, Reema Ahmed, Gayatri Vishwanath, Ami Mal, sorry, Professor Keval Arora, Dr. Sahana Bhattacharya, Amrapali Bosu Maitro, Dr. Anna Sacha, Father Sunil Makwan, Professor Sachin Labade, Professor Shraddha Atidyavid, Sujit Prasad, Professor Sudha Rai, Dr. Paramita Bose, Ankita Anand, Dr. Ruchira Talukdar, Seema Girija Lal, Likla Lal, Professor Maya Joshi, and Professor Papia Sengupta. So here we have our dear Sonali, and love to listen. We all will love to listen your view about your book and why you thought about this. And before that, I would love to introduce the author, that is the poet. Sonali Pattnaik is a poet, an educator, academic, and artist. She has taught literature in English for more than 12 years to students of Delhi University, Mumbai University, and SNDT University. She has a PhD in literature and is currently on the Board of Studies in English at St. Xavier's College, Ahmedabad. She was formerly assistant professor in English at Delhi University's Kirorimal College. She is mostly a self-taught artist and began writing poetry when she was 12. Wow. She is the recipient of the Orange Flower Award for Poetry in English 2022 and is a believer and practitioner of the philosophy of unschooling. So, Sonali, we would love to know the process of your creating this wonderful, wonderful book. Sonali, over to you.
Thank you so much. I think thank you is just not adequate at this point. The way in which friends and colleagues and just about everyone I could think of inviting to share this journey has shown me encouragement, is present here or even otherwise. So, but that's all I have right now. Thank you so much, Paramita. That was a beautiful introduction, not just of me, but of friends gathered here. And I know that this is happening because of the pandemic. But as I always say to students as well, there's always a good side to all the terrible that we're seeing. I could not have had so many of us joining in from so many different places had it not been for a virtual meet. So I'll take my blessings where I get them, as we are all doing. So I do want to speak about the process of putting this book together, but I'd like to acknowledge Women Empowered India and what it has done for me and my poetic voice, which is a lot, Smeetha Bhoumik, and thank you for putting this together. I also want to acknowledge the times that we're living in. They're not easy. They're difficult times in very many ways. And like me, I know there are several people whose lives have been upturned irrevocably so because of the pandemic, because of all the loss and suffering that we have been going through. So I just want to, just send out a message of prayer and hope at such a time. And one hopes that one emerges from this and every other darkness that seems to be looming over us through something like this, through collective endeavor, speaking to each other, through poetry, through sharing our love, our blessings, our friendship, and learning that we're not really going to be able to survive on this planet if we're not there for each other. And I think that's something that is also, I feel, at the heart of what I write. So it's a difficult question. Smeetha had asked me earlier in a conversation, what is the process of putting this book together? It's a very difficult question to answer. As I can see, it's difficult to locate a point of beginning. And I don't even know whether that is a desirable thing to do at this stage. Is there a singular beginning? There probably isn't for my book. The poems in hindsight obviously came together and have a narrative structure and look a certain way. And surely that is true, that resonates and that somewhere is approximate to the poet persona's life, to my life, and so on. But that's only one kind of truth. For instance, if many of you have read the poems, if you read the first section of the book, it's divided into sections called Risen and Reckoning, Reborn and Rising. So like I said, the structure is in hindsight, the narrative structure, the flow, all of that is in hindsight. When I was writing, obviously, I did not feel any of these things exactly during that process. So one of the points of its emergence is really the pit of, of suffering, pain, loss, the death of dreams. And I was writing to survive. In fact, I don't know how many people will identify with this. I was someone who traded in words. Not only did I write from the age of 12, I was also someone who taught literature, who taught stories, who taught narratives, who wrote papers. So for me, to experience trauma was also a loss of language. There was a sense of, what do I say now? What is left to be said? So all of the theory that one learned and one taught, it was a moment of reckoning, is this going to help me? And that loss of language, I think, ushered in poetry for me. Poetry was something that was possible when no other kind of language was possible, to approximate what I was going through, and not even approximate, to even give voice to the sense of voicelessness that I was feeling. And I think this is probably the nature of poetry, not just my poetry. There is resistance already built into the act of writing. And I'm sure we are all, so many of us are poets here and so on, and we read poetry and we teach it. This is something I strongly feel. Of course, good poetry, not, that's a whole other topic altogether, who decides what is good and what is bad. But all good poetry, probably in the act of writing, is somewhere creating, I feel, this resistance, because it splits the self. You are able to hover over yourself. You can watch yourself, as it were. And for me, that gave me strength. That gave me a sense of the sense that this is not it. You are not the sum of your experiences. Okay, that there is a window, there is a door, there is something else. Writing of it gave me that. And even when I was writing in times of happiness, because again, if you've read the book traverses, from suffering and loss and all of that, to reclaiming the self, to celebrating forms of masculinity that we're not raised to celebrate, softer masculinity, softer romantic discourses, and so on, more equal discourses. Even when I was writing about all of those things, I think there is, at the heart of it, poetry helps me to survive, which is why I think I always talk about it in terms of being my most immediate voice, right? So that's one point of emergence. If I can think of another point of emergence, I think it comes from the fact that I have always written poetry. I was never raised, I'm sure this is different for different people, but I was never raised to think that that was a very incredible gift or anything like this. But I wrote because I was lost. At 12 or 13, when I left from India to, to foreign shores, there was a lot that changed, lot transformed. And poetry allowed me to, again, negotiate with those transformations, to emerge stronger, to emerge different. I never used to use I, the persona that I'm very happy to use today in my poetry. I use I very freely, very often, unabashedly. At that point, from whatever little I can remember, because I've not kept any of these poems. So that's the sad truth when you're, not, I think, raised to value that poetry is wonderful, but it is, and one should keep everything. So very quickly, to just tie that up with this, when I wrote about people with disabilities, people with difficulties. So I remember, for instance, one of my poems was about an athlete who could no longer run. right? So I was obviously trying to identify with that. I was not an athlete, but I felt something like that at that point, going through cultural changes and differences. And I wrote to resist. I wrote to reclaim a sense of self. I wrote to reclaim, a sense of voicelessness. So that's the second point at which I think the poems emerge, because I remembered when I wrote that there was always somebody who was, like I said, something different from the sum of all my experiences. And the third point would be when there is enough time has passed. These poems have been written over a span of 11 years. Yeah, they look like they just come together maybe in a year or two. It's not like that. And a lot of people assume that it's not like that. That distance helped me, where I could then look back and say, okay, this is not just about my voice, my experiences, and so on, resistance and reclaiming a self and all. No, there is something here that I want to disseminate, something here that I want to pass on to others, other young women. That's why, Smeetha, any of you who've read it, it's dedicated to my daughter. It's a symbolic dedication. Of course, my daughter will read it. And of course, my daughter was one of the reasons why I could see the light of day more clearly than I ever have. But it's also for all our daughters, all young women. I hope that young women, older women, middle-aged women, age irrespective, hijab wearing women, not hijab wearing women read the book, because I wanted that, what I have experienced and whatever, I don't know what to call it, it's not wisdom, but something, learning that has been gleaned from those experiences and so on, and put in poetic form. I hope that that can be put out there as a gift for others to make something of it. I was doing my master's when I first read Edward Said. He's a cultural critic, post-colonial, doyen, and so on. He'd said this about his first book. He said, I realized that once the book is out there, it's no longer yours, and people can interpret it however they want to. And I realized that that's a wonderful thing. That's what's happening here. When I listen to so many of you, the feedback you give me and so on, it means something to you entirely. So my process is part of it, but it's entirely something else. So yes, I would like, as Paramita says, I would like women, I would like sons and men, everyone to read the book, so that we can start asking some difficult questions and think about some difficult things that we often keep silent about. And if I have 2 more minutes, Smeetha, do I? I haven't been timing myself.
Yeah, okay. So since you asked me, I have 2 points. One is that you have 2 minutes, of course. And when you introduce the first speaker for the next session, before that, please invite Professor Ananda Lal to say a few words, because we are very fortunate to have him with us. Okay.
Absolutely. Yes, we'll do, Smeetha. So I will just wrap up, because Paramita had asked me about the title of the book. The title came actually much before most of the poems came. I knew that this was going to be the title of the book if I was to ever write one. Flowers, I think, are a symbol, often a concept metaphor of something beautiful, something you can admire, pluck, keep, decorate your homes with, in a sense, objectify, press in the folds of your writing, in your books and so on. But no one envisions flowers as having, let's say, a life of their own. If I was to just use it as a metaphor, you can think about women, you can think about marginalized forces, anybody when you think about flowers. So that's when the title came to me, that what if these flowers that we pluck, use to decorate, press, and so on, what if they were to speak? Of course, there's a spectral quality to it, but also this idea of, revolution, spring, and so on, everything that flowers in all their good sense also stand for, that once they speak, they can tell their stories too. They're not just objects of beauty to be pressed amongst pages of your book. Right. And so, like I said, Smeetha, thank you. This is exactly where I was going to end. When I sent the manuscript to Professor Ananda Lal, I am most fortunate. I didn't know much about the publishing world, poetry publishing world. I asked Simin Ali, my ex-student and a very established poet now, I have this, where should I send it? And she said, Writer's Workshop. So I had heard of Writer's Workshop, but didn't know so much about them. And then I sent it. And then this beautiful book that we see before us is really all they're doing. I can take no credit except for the content, of course. He wrote back, if I may quote a little bit of what he said, I think this will make a formidable, excellent volume. Your I've read your manuscript and it's eminently publishable. I was besides myself with joy, and all thanks to Writers Workshop for putting it together. So thank you, Anand. Thank you, Professor Lal. Please, if you could say a few words. Thank you for being here also.
Thank you, Sonali. It's very kind of you to request me to speak because I was planning only to listen to what you had to say. But it's a wonderful occasion, and congratulations on this debut book. I mean, you've been published all over the world before, but the inaugural book is always something memorable. So I'm sure you'll cherish this particular moment, and of course, the year that this entire book belongs to. Actually, it belongs to 21, but of course, it's going to carry on for this year, right? No, I mean, I do publish many new writers, as everybody knows. Most of the poets I publish, as with my father, most of them happen to be women, which says a lot about, I think, the writing of poetry in India now, not just in English, probably in other languages too. But what struck me about Sonali's book is, of course, it does touch upon many of the recurrent concerns. It is a serious matter, actually. Many of the poems have extremely, content that is not necessarily, how does one put it, safe or secure. These come from a very disturbed persona. And of course, poetry does very often come from such personae. We know that. But what struck me most, apart from the concerns that dominate poetry written by most women today, is the fact that Sonali had stitched them seamlessly together into what seems like a 4-act drama. I mean, I'm a theater critic, and I know that some people out there like Baisali would appreciate what I'm saying. There is a certain sense of beginning, middle, and closure coming to an end, resolution, or even reconciliation throughout this book, which is why, unlike most debut books of poetry, it is quite a substantial volume, because it's about, what, 150 pages? Not too many debut books are like that. So it really takes you on a journey through the life of this, let us say, quote unquote, imagined persona who suffers a great deal from the beginning and then reclaims herself, and then actually it's a process of renewal, isn't it, and rejuvenation when she comes, well, I shouldn't give the suspense away, but when she almost hands the book over to the next generation. So I'm very happy to be here, and congratulations, Sonali, once again for your debut.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Lal. You've said a lot of things that were on my mind, yes. And I just wanted to say that you're absolutely right. Like, I wanted to start by saying it's not an easy book to read. It's not one of those books of poems that will necessarily, lift you immediately. But if one stays with it, hopefully one feels that metamorphosis that you've outlined so beautifully. So thank you so much. I'll introduce the next speaker. So it gives me much pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Professor Sudha Rai. Professor Sudha Rai is an academic, author, and researcher. She was formerly Dean at the Faculty of Arts, University of Rajasthan, and Professor of English at the Department of English at the University of Rajasthan, and Head of Department at Manipal University, Jaipur, Rajasthan. She has authored 2 critical books on V.S. Naipaul and is the co-editor with Professor Jasbir Jain of what to my mind is a very special and very important book, Films and Feminism, Essays in Indian Cinema. This is a very short biography of someone who has accomplished a lot, but because for questions of brevity and time, I will invite Professor Sudha Rai, who is also the mother of a very friend of mine and someone who has encouraged my poetic voice for almost 5 years now, ever since I started writing and sharing on social media and so on. So very, very happy to have her here. Professor Sudha Rai, if you could just say a few words. Professor Rai, you'll have to unmute. Yeah.
Okay, I've unmuted. Sorry for that. Yeah. Many congratulations. And, when I got to know that your first volume is going to be published and all too soon, I have been eagerly waiting for this because you have been posting poems that I've been reading, over the last few years. And I have always felt that what the poems do to me as an individual and as a woman is to open up so many, buried recesses, recesses of pain, anger, a sense of, well, here is a being who is working through something and there is searing pain. And there is so much anger, you see, that has to find its own outlet and to flow away. And I also felt when the volume of poems came to me that the poems are so mature and so tall. And today I went through the poems, you see, all over again, the first section by section. And I said, well, if I had to find and identify my favorite poems, each one is a favorite. Each one is a favorite because it is so beautifully crafted and there is a logic to it. There is a reason. There is the strength of very authentic emotion. And, the flow, like that poem that you have about water, which is getting to be one of my absolute favorites. And the way in which you feminize, you see, the language so that it is, it's reborn. The language itself is truly reborn. And that's something that I feel with each of your poems. And there is so much beauty, beauty so difficult to contain. And sometimes the pain is difficult to comprehend. And then the beauty itself can't be encompassed. So this is what I feel. And I think you have an absolutely brilliant road ahead of you, which you have, walked so bravely with such perseverance. And we all know that all the great feminists world over, endurance of the spirit is one of their finest traits. And I felt really glad when you said that I am writing this for young women, I'm writing this for my daughter, because feminists do need to leave a legacy behind. And that is what you will do, Sonali. So thank you so much for inviting me to your launch. I'm honored to be here.
Thank you so much, Professor Rai. Thank you. And yes, I do hope that I, do half of what you say that, life ahead of me stands for, but this is exactly what fuels me. Where my anger, or just anger as I call it, righteous anger, resonates with women across the board because there is a purpose for. And if I may say, I think at the heart of my poetry, I recognize what lies is poetic justice, not in the sense that we understand poetic justice, but justice that poetry can bring to the table when other forms of justice fail. To address oppressions and ordinary oppressions and provocations and so on. So thank you so much. Your words are so precious to me, and they will give me wings.
Thank you, Sonali. We move on to the next session, which is led by Somrita Urni Ganguly. And before I hand it over to her, a very brief introduction, because I do not have access to the notes. I'm on the phone. Somrita Urni Ganguly is a poet, professor, and award-winning translator. Her work has been extensively published worldwide.
She is the recipient of the Jawaharlal Nehru Fund Memorial Fund Award and the Sarojini Datta Memorial Award. She is the editor of a very novel anthology called Quesadilla Food Adventures. And also she has translated very, very important works from the Bengali into English. Over to you, Somrita.
Thank you so much, Smeetha. At the very onset, a huge round of congratulations, Sonali. Such an important work. When Smeetha sent the poems across to me, I was overwhelmed. And I have to admit, I haven't been able to go through the entire collection, but there's so much to savor. I'm looking forward to doing that. Apologies for joining a little late. I had a lecture, and you know how it is with us. If there is a question at the end of a session from a student, you sit back and you answer. That's where our commitment lies. So apologies, but I'm so glad to be here now. Good evening to everybody that has tuned in and is watching. Thank you, Sudhaji, for beginning that session with your observations, with your thoughts. We will move on to the next invited speaker. Unfortunately, I cannot see Professor Prasad on my screen, but I am not to be trusted with technology, even after 2 years of doing this. Can someone please help me with this? Oh, sir, if you are on this call, would you please unmute your microphone? I don't think Professor Prasad, yes, I don't think Professor Prasad is here. I still don't see him on the screen. We shall therefore move on to the next invited speaker. I'm going to invite Shweta Rao Garg to comment on Sonali's work. Just to quickly read out a brief bio note, Shweta Rao Garg is an artist, poet, and academic. She's an associate professor of English at DAIICT Gandhinagar. Her collection of poetry of goddesses and women was published by Sahitya Akademi in 2021. Her graphic novel, The Tales from Campus, A Miss Guide to College, will be published soon with Crossed Arrows. Her poems have been published in journals like Indian Literature, Cold Noon, Everyday Poems, Post-Colonial Text, Transnational Literature, and News India, among others. Her artwork can be found on her website, shwetaraogarg.com. Shweta, over to you.
Thank you so much, Soumitra. So I've heard every word that has been spoken here, and starting from like all the speakers, especially Professor Lal and Professor Rai, I agree with everything that you've said. And it's interesting how both of you have used the word legacy. And that's what I feel when I've not read the book Guilty as Charged, but I have been privy to Sonali's poetry for quite some time, and I do not know how many, but all that you post and you know all the other things from Kali and other poems that you have. So one thing which was very evident when I read her, and I didn't know anything about Sonali, and I don't even need to as a reader, really. So, and even if I want to go beyond my gender, what I understand is what I get is a sense of resilience. And one thing which I know of Sonali, that she comes from academia, and we are all friends here, so I'm not making a personal comment, but generally I'm very afraid of professors of English writing poetry, because I think we can't help it but write really learned verses, isn't it? Because that's who we are. So I think with Sonali, it comes, it just flows. And very soon it sort of, goes beyond being, it's never learned poetry, but it is lyrical and it is affective. And, anyone, I believe, like absolutely anyone could read it, because it travels, it travels through the writer, the poet, to the reader. And also because it flows, and so effortlessly so. Because I think that is the most important part of being a poet. Worst thing is when, so my struggle with poetry is that, my mother would say, oh, I don't understand. What is it that you want to say? I don't believe that's going to happen with Sonali's poetry. And I think that means that there is something so authentic there that that makes it so relatable. And if I'm given an opportunity, I would love to read 2 poems by her. And again, we were discussing and we said, like, I cannot choose one, Sonali, and what kind of a problem is it? And she said that in a world which is marred by all kinds of problems, choosing which poem to read is a good kind of problem. So in any case, I have 2 which I have shortlisted, and if I'm allowed. So maybe the first which I'm going to read is Light. Oh, don't be so surprised. Fear and hatred have always traveled faster than light. Light will come through, drowning all your sound and fury. Light must come through. Broken, perhaps, but in time. And what do you say to these lines? You don't. You just absorb it. And I think the second and also the last, because I believe there are many people who would want to talk about Sonali's works. So second poem I have chosen today is Voice. For a long time, I was silent. Your loud voice overtook all. If I spoke at all, they heard your words, most of them stolen right from the gut of my throat. Your loud voice took all. When I finally spoke it, shocked some to learn that soft could burn stone. They listened and at times even heard, but you spoke too, and quickly after. And your voice overtook all. I shouted. They called it loud. Your silence overtook all. So I understood. It's really simple. It isn't about loud or soft or whether I spoke or not. For the ears that can only hear you, your voice overtakes all voices are voices, only as heard. I listened to my own words, then my voice overtook all. And maybe I don't even have to explain why would I choose this, because at many level, I think this embodies probably Sonali's journey. And very soon, I mean, what we see here, and this is this 4-act that everybody's been talking about, that you begin somewhere and then you edge towards a resolution. And I believe that in this poetry you find that forming already, that your voice is stifled, and at the end of it there is this realization that it is not about the decibel really, it's about your realization that perhaps your voice matters. And I hope, I pray, and nay, I'm sure, Sonali, that your voice will resound, echo, and will inspire so many people. Continue to write. More power to you, Sonali. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shweta. Thank you also for reading. And I was planning on weaving in some poetry along with the conversations, which we will do shortly. For now, I'm going to invite our next speaker, Dr. Baisali Chatterjee Dutt, to comment on Sonali's book. To quickly introduce you to our next invited speaker. She's a feminist poet, academic writer, and educator. She's currently assistant professor at Kohima College, Nagaland. She has published 2 books of poetry, Sopfuno and Wake, and her creative and academic work is widely published in journals and anthologies. She's also the co-founder and director of Center for Indigenous Knowledge and Alternative Learning. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. It's just wonderful to be in, sort of the same virtual space as 2 women who have taught me and been so significant in my personal and academic journey. So hi, Ms. Chander, and hi, Anjali. And for Sonali, congratulations. I think I might actually enjoy the distinction of having read almost all of your poems before they were published, So each poem was, I almost remember where I was and what I was doing and what I was feeling when I read each of your poems for the first time. I think most of them you posted, here and there, and I think maybe you shared some of them personally. I know you from, I think when we were teenagers, when you joined, we went to the same boarding school together. Sonali is just a year older than me. And I remember you from, I think the first day you joined, because Sonali from the beginning was in a way, very pleasantly disruptive in a very sort of conforming boarding school space. And she always stood out. And then I met you in undergrad. I was your junior in MA when we were doing our masters. And, you've always just been a good friend, a mentor, even if you didn't mean to be, and, somebody I've looked up to. So we have this wonderful history. I'm also I also teach literature. I'm also a poet, and there's so many women here today who are like me, but I don't want to speak in those capacities. I actually want to speak from a very personal place. I want to speak as a survivor of abuse. There's a stereotype of women who suffer abuse, and society refuses to see women who are educated, economically independent, seemingly in control and empowered as, women who may suffer abuse. And, I think from the moment that you started writing about, I didn't ask permission, I didn't ask permission about this, but, from the moment you started writing about these things, it was just something, it was revelatory for me, to see that, wow, there are others like me, and that, yes, poetry is a space where we can talk about things. Poetry is an arena where we can, in a way, fight back, and find our place. So I just want to thank you for writing all your poems. And the other capacity I want to speak, in which I want to speak, is as a mother. I have 3 daughters. And as a survivor of abuse, that's always something that, you worry about. How do you talk to your daughters about these things? Because in a way, if you broach these topics, it's a loss of innocence. You're responsible for, sort of destroying a certain view of the world that, girls can never get back, but on the other hand, you also want to prepare them. And I just find, that your poetry is just remarkable. This is something that I have not been able to do personally as a poet. My poems are poems I don't want my daughters to read. But then your poetry is actually, gentle. I think somebody's already said this, but my favorite one is How to Find Politically Sound Love. And, when I read it, I thought, wow, this is perfect. It just, it strikes that perfect balance. This is the kind of poetry that I can share with my very young daughters, with young women who have perhaps never even been in a relationship, but, who will maybe read this and understand that, love is not, love, it can be treacherous, and it's, a field of landmines, but that there's beauty, in sort of dancing around them. So yeah, I just want to say thank you, Sonali. Your poetry is wonderful. I think, you've contributed to posterity, especially as a feminist. I think you've really, sort of given us a very significant text, not just in terms of academic poetry, etc., but really in terms of, a text that women, young, old, married, unmarried, divorced, all and all forms, but all kinds of people and men, all genders, all identities, a text that we can all read, and find in a way that it's all right to claim power over oneself, and it's all right to, sort of decide what we deserve. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I was wondering if we should broach this today. We're in this really interesting time, in this really interesting moment in history. And especially a day like today, the last couple of days, we've been facing imminent threats of a war. And I was wondering if it's natural to just keep talking poetry when there is war knocking on your door. And then I discovered this poem in Sonali's book, and I'm going to read that for us today. And I think this is what good poetry does. You don't immediately realize how it's going to hit you, but it comes back in moments when you're not expecting it to, and it completely takes you by surprise. This one's called Home. And give me just a moment as I try this. Home. What happens when the home that you return to isn't really home, but this creature, beautiful at once, but mostly waiting with its fate to grab you by a stare and drag you across from square to square while you scream for mercy and look for a corner from the corner of your eyes and think, this is how it ends. This is how I'll die, and walls close in on you till you don't know whether they're all just walls, or was there in this place you sit inside as a bundle of pain, once a door that let you in? Well, I could say things about it, but I would also sort of want the silence to sink in, and the power of the words, the beauty, the simplicity of the words, the directness of the words, despite being so metaphorical, sink in. And, you know, with the war, with these images that we've been seeing also over the last couple of years with the migrant crisis, people have lost homes, and we usually think of home as a place that spells safety, as a place that spells security. When we talk of home, we think of it as homecoming. We rarely talk about home leaving. And I was absolutely struck by how this poem, you know, in this poem, Sonali debunks that myth of security and safety that we associate with this four-letter word. That home has not always been a safe space for several women. We have also learned glaringly, revealingly over the last couple of years with the pandemic and how it's redefined home spaces, and we are continuing to learn now with what's going on in the world. With that, I actually have a few more that I've shortlisted that I would love to read, but I think we should hear Sonali read to us. Which poems did you find the most difficult to read, Sonali? The most difficult to write, I'm sorry. Or alternatively, the ones that you found most cathartic for you when you were writing them, if you could read to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you so much, Somrita. In fact, Home was one of the poems that I had also marked out. Well, of course, as so many of you have discussed already, the spine or the rib of this book of poetry is also intimate violence, among so many other things. And when one is experiencing intimate violence, it's at least that is, you know, this poet persona, and this is my also experience. It's impossible to really write. So there would be, you know, 5 years, I think more, 6 years of my life where I've only written about 5 or 6 poems, and maybe 5 or 6 even survived from that. Maybe others were written and ripped and thrown. And then when I was putting the book together, I gathered those, I heard my voice again, and I said, okay, yes, there is this narrative here. And I, you know, didn't change, barring a punctuation here, there, I didn't change anything, because I wanted it to read raw. I wanted it to be, you know, that visceral pain, suffering, whatever, that sense of complete loss. So most of the poems that are in the section ripped were very, very difficult to write, in the sense that words would not come to me to, you know, mirror or say anything of, you know, helpful to my experience. So But I'll read one of the shorter ones. I had, as I said, Somrita marked home, but I would like to read Writing as Memory, if I can just find that one. Just give me a moment. So, I think this is what writing did for me. When I thought I could not write, it wrote itself in a way. You know, it wrote and it remembered things that I thought I had suppressed in order to survive, you know, because I had, I think that's what the brain does. The brain helps you to survive by also setting aside certain things, you know, for the time being. So writing as memory, writing as witness, I'm sorry. So, and I think this is an idea that's become very popular for good reason now, that poetry is something that bears witness. So a lot of my poetry does that, yes, and that's what I mean by finding poetic justice. So this is about that process in a way of bearing witness. It's called Writing as Witness. Writing is memory that you don't know you possess. It speaks against the erased inscribing in long strokes the caves of silence in your mouth, with ancient marks of speech. It is the other hand of your tongue. Parallel they run, but not in my messes. In being other, writing reveals. It is not the last of words, nor the first, for it must be of something a kind of saying that in the saying, like the shifting sands of memory, itself exceeds. Writing is a remembering that will howl out the past as you let it on your blank sheet spill. Memory's witness and her telling, even when you have long forgotten, writing remembers still.
So very powerful, Sonali. Thank you for reading that one. Also one of my favorites, because again, you know, sometimes it's difficult for us to separate the academic and the poet's selves. And this is something that I have been thinking of for a while. And I wanted to ask you this question because you've written this collection over several years and it's out now, but you've been putting yourself into this book for many years now. What role does memory play in your writing? You know, you just pointed out it helps us remember things, but it also helps us forget things.
Absolutely.
In a way, memories tell us lies.
Yes.
These are stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. What role has memory played in your writing?
Everything. Thank you for that question, Somrita. Everything. You know, memory was my only weapon. And in a sense, I think for survivors, it really is their primary weapon, because you just brought, you know, home to the forefront. You know, there's, I think, U2 song or something that says home is where the hurt is instead of where the heart is. You know, that's where hurt is, where pain is, right? And we very rarely reckon with that as academics, because we are all, you know, so many of us are here. But even in, you know, as any other, you know, where we live society, I think home, the personal, is evacuated of a sense of the political. And I think in my writing, I try to bring back the political. I bring back the question of oppression inside homes, of hurt and harm inside homes. That's the attempt. So yes, memory is in that sense the only tool at that point. And you make a very interesting point about, yes, memory tells us stories and we lie and so on. But, you know, I'm not an essentialist. As I understand, we all make up stories about ourselves all the time, right? And yes, political rhetoric, or whether it be folk tales, we are constantly weaving our narratives. So poetry is no different in that sense. It just has a register or a tone or a language of its own, or for you to make your own. So in that sense, you asked me earlier about which poem I found very difficult to write. In Case of Abuse would be one of those poems. It's a long poem, so I cannot read here, and I think it, you know, it warrants a little more spending time and so on, because it's very close to my heart. When I looked back, when I was putting this together and sending the manuscript, I was actually surprised that I could write like that at that point. You know, Thay said this beautiful thing that she's speaking as a survivor, and if I was to speak as a survivor, not as a poet, that's what it says. It says that in case I have to testify, I will not be able to. Because one of the natures of intimate violence is that it's not like other forms of violence where you can just so easily bear witness. You know, it manipulates your insides. It makes you feel as though you owe someone something. It tells you that it's your fault that you asked for violence, so many other things. You know, so what Shweta read earlier, voice, that also goes with that. With someone else's voice is always inside your head when you're trying to survive any form of violence, any form of fascism, oppression, whatever. And to put that voice aside and then be able to, you know, testify, it's very difficult. So that poem actually ends on that note. In case of abuse, it says that, you know, the case is dismissed because my memory plays truant to me. You know, just when I need it to bear testimony, it's become your voice. So there is a splitting of the self that is so fundamental to intimate violence. And hence reclaiming means actually, you know, becoming one, as it were, rather than, you know, two people. And so very, very critical to my writing, memory is.
Yeah. And also, you know, just to add that little hyphen to remembering and make it remembering, you know, because you said you're reclaiming these parts of yourselves, remembering yourself. Fascinating. We do want to hear more readings from Sonali, not letting you go easy today, but we will move on to the next section and we will weave in more poetry after that section. So I do want to invite Dr. Paramita Mukherjee now to comment on Sonali's book, and I invite Smeetha to introduce Dr. Mukherjee.
Sorry, Somrita, I had already been introduced by Baisali wonderfully.
Okay.
So
okay. I'm so sorry.
Needed. Sonali, it's amazing, like what you talk about legacy, what you know, you for your daughter, like, you know, I do have a daughter and I have a single child. So you know, it resonates within me. So it was so wonderful, and I'm really, really, you know, looking forward to people reading your book, and great wishes for it. And if you allow me to read one poem, which is not your poem, Sonali, like, since you say legacy, like, I am basically I'm a geneticist. I've taught genetics all my life, and suddenly in quite old an age, in the middle age, I started writing poetry, and literature became a passion of mine. So I do see the chromosomal DNA coming down to children, the heredity, and I see even the environmental exposure also, how a child grows up, you know, legacy. So I would love to read a poem of my very young adult daughter, which fascinated me, because, you know, we talk about, I write a lot of love poems, but a young adult thinking about love her way, it really fascinated me. So it's not ego that is making me read it. It's just that I loved her poem and how she felt about love. So her name is Sankalpita Mullick. So I'll just read out her poem, which I really liked it. They say I have never loved. They say I have never loved. Couples holding hands at bus stands, interlocking their fingers as they see two doves sitting in a nest, surveying the land. But is that all there is to love? My parents taking care of each other, growing old together. All of us watching shows together after dinner, one after another. And they said, I never loved. My friends and I watch a movie at night, 5 people struggling to fit on a rickety bed, leaving the movie halfway to grab a bite. And they said, we have never loved. An old friend crying because we live in different cities and couldn't meet for ages. To meet each other amidst all this chaos, we are dying. And they said, we have never loved. Talking with a stranger, knowing their aspirations and dreams, that little element of risk in knowing the unknown, the pleasant danger. And they said, I never loved. Giving a meal to someone who needs it on a cold and hungry day, a child playing with a stray puppy in the park, both of them oblivious to their mothers, pleading with them to return home soon. Both of them untainted by the world's harsh bite and bark, and they say they have no bond. Talking to someone about all that they have lived and experienced, even if you have never met, even if you never meet them again. Strangers that on your heart hold an inexplicable sway. And they said, I have never loved. Eating a dish made with love, swallowing and grinding to a pulp, the texture playing carom with my tongue, as I eat it with no barriers, no measures to what I gulp. And they say I never loved. Looking into a mirror and looking at me, staring back, gazing into those eyes and forgiving the past, loved my curves, my imperfections and all that society says I lack. And they say I never loved. The gentle hand of my grandmother caressing my head. She tells me stories of monsters and bears and sings to me as I lay in bed. And they say I have never loved. And the last stanza, is the lover's embrace all that there is to love? Is one without it one who has never loved? Is all there is to love violence, rose petals, rose petals on beds and flying doves? And so they say, I have never loved, not knowing that I love every day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Paramita Di, for sharing that with us as well. An important emerging voice, if I may add, who is going to contribute to the constellation of Indian English poetry sooner than later, I hope. All our best wishes for her as well. I would now like to invite Baisali Di to talk further about Sonali's book, perhaps read something for us.
Okay. Hi again, everyone. And Sonali, once again, I have had the pleasure of reading some of your poems. I am awaiting my copy. I have already ordered it and I can't wait to get my hands on it. But I read so much.
Sorry to interrupt. May I introduce you? I think
okay.
Yeah, you haven't been formally introduced, so I have the great pleasure of introducing you. So I'm sorry, I'm reading from my phone. Please excuse me. Baisali Chatterjee Dutt is a domesticated nomad who writes, edits, dabbles in theatre and teaches. Her poetry has been published in various anthologies and magazines, print as well as online. Her latest novella in verse, 3 is a Lonely Number, is available on Amazon Kindle. She eats chocolate by the bucketful. She has 2 teenage boys, ergo the chocolate by the bucketful. So much warm invitation back, Baisali, to please continue. And
Thank you for that introduction. And as I was saying, so I am waiting for my copy, but I have been reading your poetry. Thanks, go to Smeetha for that, and the wonderful prompts that she gave us on her page on Facebook all through Global Poetry Writing Month. And that's when I was introduced to your beautiful poetry, and I found more of your poetry online, and I've been a fan ever since. Smeetha has very kindly sent me a lot of your some of your poems from the book. Quite a few of the ones that I had earmarked have already been read out. But Sonali, yours is such an important voice. And I know we've already talked about the legacy that you're leaving behind and the reason that you write. And I personally resonate with a lot of it because I also started writing at 11. And it was a life-changing event, which made me start writing. I mean, like for me, it was, I moved from America back to India, and my father stayed behind to work. So that missing of a country that I thought was my own, a missing of a man who I loved beyond all measure, and trying to settle down into a new school, into a new life. I mean, like all of those factors contributed greatly to my writing. A lot of the poems that you write and I write, I mean, like they not only stem from memory, they also stem from past experiences, difficult experiences. And I think it's poetry, if I'm not mistaken, I think poetry helps us to navigate our way around those experiences. Probably when we start to write about these events, we kind of take a step back and actually look at it from a third person view. Okay. And it's like we are witnessing, we are not, I won't say necessarily that we are reliving or experiencing our pain again, but we are now witnessing it from another point of view, which enables us to probably write with a passionate yet impassioned voice. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think poetry definitely helps us look at our own experiences in such a way as to present them to the whole world, so that they can understand where we're coming from and yet not drown in the moroseness of it necessarily. Okay. Anyway, that's, sorry about that with my phone. Okay, so the poem that I'm going to read by you is called Voice. For a long time, I was silent. Your loud voice overtook. If I spoke at all, they heard your words, most of them stolen right from the gut of my throat. Your loud voice took it all. When I finally spoke, it shocked some to learn that soft could burn stone. They listened, and at times even heard, but you spoke too, and quickly after, and your voice overtook all. I shouted, they called it loud. Your silence overtook all. So I understood. It's really simple. It isn't about loud or soft, or whether I spoke or not. For the ears that can only hear you, your voice overtakes all. Voices are voices only as heard. I listened to my own words, and then my voice overtook all. And may your voice keep overtaking all, Sonali. May we keep getting the gift of your voice for years and years to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Vaishali. Also, my apologies for that oversight earlier. You just feel like thrown off balance when you come in 5 minutes late. The world has changed. Sonali, the spotlight's back on you now. Would you like to read us maybe a couple of more works from this collection?
Thank you so much, Somrita. Some of the ones I had chosen have also been read, so I'm thinking I would like to read something that's got more resilience in it, something that, where if we are looking towards ending things, we must look towards away from despair. As you rightly said, we're living not only in the midst of a pandemic, but the onset of war and so much suffering already, so much suffering. So poetry can do this. It can give us courage. So I would like to read a short poem called Courage. Just give me a moment. Courage. Know exactly who you are. You know, always. Only touch that truth, breathing it in. Belief is bodily. Don't you let others talk you out of your skin. It is your face. Walk the night, take it slow, curling your toes as you go. Walk away, sway. Lose the compass at your hips. Take it all the way. Take it all the way.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Thank you, Sonali. You know, at one point earlier, you were talking about you let slip the phrase almost accidentally as you were good poetry. And then you said that could be the subject of another discussion. It could be the subject of this discussion right now, you know, because for me, it's obviously difficult to define, right? Because it's so subjective. But for me, a good poem is one that it changes me a little. It disturbs me. It makes me think differently from where I was before and where I end up being after reading the poem. And your poetry does that to me. It alters me ever so little. And you know, this change doesn't have to be a huge seismic shift. It could also be a gentle process of awakening. And you do that so remarkably in this collection, Sonali. Wishing you all the success. Let there be more flowers, which you offer to us from your basket, but let this flower also bloom and blossom and enrich us. And with that, we will move on to the final segment of this evening. Lily is here with us. I will formally introduce Lily first. And give me just a second as I draw this out. Lily Swarn is an internationally acclaimed multilingual poet, author, peace, and humanity ambassador who has authored 5 books, and her poems have been translated into 17 languages. She's the recipient of around 50 international and national awards, including one from the Gujarat Sahitya Academy. Recently, she was awarded Best Indian Author 2021 for her book, History on My Plate. Lily, we love the energy that you bring to We Gatherings. We love the energy that you bring to every poetry reading session. Let the mehfil begin, as they would say.
Very much, Somrita. You're such an adorable, person to get us all together. Love the way you enunciate your English. It's so perfect. First of all, let me congratulate Sonali Pattnaik. It's such a joy to be amongst such huge luminaries. And I need to thank Smeetha Bhoumik, as always, for letting me be part of these, very, informed gatherings. So, okay, my 2 penny bit, since I haven't, got anything special to say, I'm going to talk about women since there are so many of us here. So first of all, let me say just a woman. So you want to talk about her anatomy? That statuesque lady who looks like she stepped out of a temple sculpture? Go on, slur your words and smirk. Lecherous glances and suggestive innuendos will help. Or better still, rake up her hoary past, an ex-boyfriend or her intimate relationships. Tear her to shreds with your wagging tongues. Make mincemeat out of her reputation. For she's not human at all, just a woman after all. Who cares why her sari is creased today, as terribly as a broad forehead is? Or why her mother simply won't come out of that horrendous coma, and that her husband won't let her children be born because they were girls, investigated in their embryonic state and rejected? That she first goes to cook for her vacantly gazing dad and then waits yawningly for her alcoholic man to stop belching so that she can stagger to the table to gobble down a few morsels? That she truly doesn't value the fact that you choose to call her a firecracker or a pataka within earshot instead of getting up to wish her politely, for that's what gentlemen should do. Well, definitely not men who commoditize women, inebriated on their own hollow masculinity. How would they know that tears simply help to strengthen a woman's resolve, to irrigate her enormous reserves of patience, not to drown her in a morass of self-pity? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lily.
Thank you. I moved around. Just sit down for a minute. Yes, Somrita, I'm coming back to you.
Yes.
All right, we got do for now.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, we can see you and hear you. Wonderful. Yes.
Thank you very much. So do you want the Urdu? Otherwise.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Maybe in Urdu, maybe a Punjabi.
Okay, Punjabi. Okay, let's do Punjabi. Sure.
Okay.
So this is about, the time in winters where the nights get really cold in North India. So this is about that. It's called Maggar Diya Rata. Maggar is a month in Punjab, in the Punjabi language. So Maggar Diya Rata. Maggar Diya Rata lammiya hovan lagiyan. Thur thur kar diyan shama. Taariyan di bukkal maran chal payiyan. Sindro, Mindro, Dane Pundiyan, Heer Ranjhe de Ishq de kisse gaan ligiyan. Ag diyan lapta tathaya karke thirkan lagiyan. मोची ने अपनी गद्दी ते तरपाल पाई मोची ने अपनी गद्दी ते तरपाल पाई अज दी कमाई वेख के मुंह लमका लिया सुकियां टहनियां लबदा भारी कदमां नाल घर वाल टुर पिया कलाशो ने कोठी दी बीबी नू सत श्री अकाल करके साइकिल नू पैडल मारिया कलाशो ने कोठी दी बीबी नू सत श्री अकाल करके साइकिल नू पैडल मारिया अज देर हो गई सी भांडे मांजते पता ही नहीं चलिया कदों हनेरा चुपचाप अंबरा तो धरती ते आ गया बापू ने पूरी बोतल पीली होनी हुण तक बापू ने पूरी बोतल पीली होनी हुण तक मां दी चमड़ी भी उधेड़ दित्ती होनी मां दी चमड़ी भी उधेड़ दित्ती होनी पौधा महीना दूरों डराई जांदा सी फुटपाथ ते सोना मुश्किल हो गया सी संतो लई पुल दे थल्ले नशेड़ियां दा कब्जा सी ਉਹ ਬੱਚੇ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਜਾਏਗੀ ਪੋ ਦੀ ਬਰਫੀਲੀ ਠੰਡ ਵਿੱਚ ਗਰੀਬੀ ਦਾ ਅਹਿਸਾਸ ਸਰਦੀਆਂ ਦੀ ਰਾਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਨਿੱਕੇ ਕੰਬਲ ਕੋਈ ਸਿਠਾਣੀ ਵੀ ਵੰਡਣ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਕੋਈ ਪਤਲੀ ਜਿਹੀ ਝੂਠੀ ਜਿਹੀ ਰਜ਼ਾਈ ਫੜਾ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਮੱਗਰ ਨੇ ਅੰਗੜਾਈ ਲਈ ਪੋਣੇ ਝਾਤ ਮਾਰੀ ਰੱਬ ਤੇ ਸਾਡਾ ਵੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਸਾਂਝਾ ਬਲੀਏ ਤੇਰਾ ਰੱਬ ਰੱਖ ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ
Thank you so much, Lily. So you're not gracing us with the Urdu one, I guess. Yeah, I'm just hungry like that. You give me one, I'll keep asking for more. But I don't want to catch you off guard. I also know you have another commitment soon after.
Urdu one if we have the time.
We can do one more. I have an eye on the time.
All right, great. Let me find it for you. Let me wear the famous glasses and I will take it out for you. Yes, here it is. तो पेश कर रही हूँ एक गजल आप सबके हुजूर में तोड़ कर दिल मलाल करते हैं मतलब अर्ज कर रही हूँ तोड़ कर दिल मलाल करते हैं आप कैसा कमाल करते हैं शेर अर्ज करती हूँ बेमुरव्वत है आप तो लेकिन मुस्कुराकर निहाल करते हैं आप कैसा कमाल करते हैं शेर अर्ज कर रही हूँ हाल दिल वो जो पूछ लेते हैं सांस वापस बहाल करते हैं आप कैसा कमाल करते हैं शर्म उनको जरा नहीं आती सुमित्रा शर्म उनको जरा नहीं आती कैसे सवाल करते हैं आप कैसा कमाल करते हैं आखिरी दो शेर अर्ज करी हूँ कैसे उनकी ना बात माने हम चश्मे नम इस्तेमाल करते चश्मे नम इस्तेमाल करते हैं। और अगला शेर पेश करती हूँ कि हिज्र वालों का हाल कैसा है, हिज्र वालों का हाल कैसा है, लम्हों को मधुसाल करते हैं, लम्हों को माहुसाल करते हैं, आप कैसा कमाल करते हैं। और आखिरी मक्ता पेश करी हूँ, ये खास तौर पे सोनाली पटनायक के लिए, जिनके लिए हम सब आज यहाँ आए हैं। इश्क हमसे जो वो नहीं करते, इश्क हमसे जो वो नहीं करते, क्यों सबा का ख्याल करते हैं, क्यों सबा का ख्याल करते हैं, आप कैसा कमाल करते हैं। बहुत मेहरबानी। उड़ना।
Got it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lily. I really thought this was the note on which we should go gentle into the good night. But Smeetha has been sending me messages on the phone constantly, which is why if I look distracted, it was because I was answering to our organizer's call. She does want me to read, and I have been caught somewhat off guard here because I wasn't prepared, because I was here to listen to Sonali today. So I will take just a second to get something out which fits not just the mood of this evening, but also the kind of thoughts and sentiments and ideas that Sonali brings to the table. This is a poem I have read before to Smeetha, and she said I should try and do another reading of this one here today. It's called The Girl on the Phone. I had written this, when I needed healing, on a night when I was angry, broken, hurt, dejected, that whole range of emotions. And I needed healing, and I realized it has to come from within me. There is no other source of healing, no other source of light. And today I want to dedicate this to you, Sonali, and to your daughter, and to our daughters who should learn to make it on their own. This one's called The Girl on the Phone. I was walking home late last night down the streets of the sour whiskey-smelling south side of New York City. I'd watched a Colombian movie, Spanish with English subs, Mama, about an estranged mother and her daughter and her daughter's daughter, and how the three briefly find love and comfort and solace in one another. The girl walking ahead of me on the footpath was on the phone, crying, and after every 4 or 5 sentences repeating, "How can you do this to me? How can you leave me alone?" Now, I love people who are unafraid to get drunk. I love sitting down with them and hearing their drunk stories. There's an honesty in their tears, of vulnerability in their lies, and indiscretion in their warmth and abandon that even the best of us have to fake in our best composed moments. And so I followed the slightly drunk, deeply disturbed girl until I had to cross the road and walk over to the other side. Have I really been able to go over to the other side? I thought of my last 2 breakdowns in the last couple of years. The letters I had written came back unanswered. All 61 of them, I seem to have sent them to a wrong address. In my late teens and early 20s, I never cried when the men came and went. I was confident and brave and uncaring. I had the kind of arrogance that comes with youth. I knew that they could leave, but I also knew they would come back someday. And even if they didn't, others would. But by the time I started approaching 30, I lost that faith in them and in me. And so I cried the last 2 times they left on the phone like that girl, repeating, "How can you do this to me? How can you leave me alone?" I wanted to stop the girl on the road, shake her up and say, "We need to be young again. We need to be shameless, reckless, brave, hopeful. There are too many of us unseeing the dreams we had once dared to chase." I wanted to tell the girl that I too had cried on the phone, but the men had left anyway. They were meant to leave anyway. You cannot make people stay when they're determined to go away. My love for those people had been hypothetical, assumptions based on insufficient evidence. I wanted to tell the girl, in the last few months that I have been alone, I did not regret that the men had gone. What I regret is that I had humbled myself for them. To love and not be loved in return is fucking brutal. I wanted to tell her that there is no beauty in fighting madly, maniacally for love where there is none. Some things look good only in the movies. In life, they tend to bring hurt and humiliation. I wanted to tell the girl she needs to apologize to herself on behalf of all those who had not. If a sorry is what you're waiting for, let me tell you, it will not come. If a sorry will help you move on, say a sorry to yourself, the one that they won't say, and do move on. I wanted to tell the girl there is no point in asking how some people live with themselves after damaging other people's homes. I wanted to tell her what follows those phone calls to unwilling lovers is regret. I regret that I had cried and begged and pleaded with them to stay. I regret that my mother never taught me how to live by myself, and how my father and my sister and my neighbor and my God and my dog and my cat all always spoke of adjustments and compromises, friendship and love, prescriptions to a happy life. There was no prescription on how to make it on my own, on how to watch a film by myself, alone, in a theater full of people, on how to order for a 3-course or a 2-course or a 1-course or any meal at all for myself in a restaurant, alone, surrounded by cheer and laughter, whispered promises and sweet kisses, on how to go to a flea market or a park or a picnic on a Sunday afternoon, alone, on how to live by myself, with myself, on my own, alone. I wish I could tell the girl the person she was on the phone with would leave anyway. I wish I could tell her, you are not an Airbnb room sister where people can come and go. Your body will not be their holiday destination, their weekend getaway, their staycation. You are worth more. I wish I could share with her the prescription on how to make it on her own. But by the time I got the medication, that girl was long gone. Thank you, Sonali.
That is such an immensely powerful, poignant, and moving poem. And it is so wonderful. And it reminds me what I left out in your introduction, that your work has earned you the We Glowing Diamond accolade in 2020. And I also forgot to mention that you're one of the judges in the PEN America Translation Awards, and also, of course, a very important judge in the We Awards, which includes Kamala Das, Eunice D'Souza, Ruby Trailblazer, poet, teacher, and everything. So thank you very much for sharing that poem. And every time I hear it, there's something emotional happening inside me, you know, and it's very cinematic. You actually follow that girl. So the way you, yeah, it's brilliant. So, and now we've come to the end of this beautiful evening, and may I request you, Somrita, because my technology is very hampered right now, to kind of offer a vote of thanks to everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Smeetha. It's always so, you know, I feel like I'm in a community when I'm in these we spaces, in these we gatherings, whether that's a digital meet of this sort or an actual physical launch. Unfortunately, we've not been able to organize one in a couple of years. The last one, I'm so humbled, so fortunate. It was actually a launch in Bombay, and we had launched my anthology that Smeetha referred to earlier at the Tidal Waves bookstore. Thank you so much for all the work that you do, Smeetha, for Indian English poetry, but also for Indian women writing in English in our country. God knows we need more patrons, we need more champions, and Indian English poetry, especially that by women, needs a facelift. Thank you for the work that you do through WE. We've got submissions for the WE Awards 2021-2022. We're reading, thanks to everybody who submitted, but Sonali, thank you for bringing this work to us today. Thank you for bringing this collection, as people have pointed out at several points throughout the evening. You're leaving behind a legacy, you're leaving behind a voice that young women should read. I don't, I shy away from using words like empowering, but I do think that these are poems that will encourage young women to fight for themselves, to speak for themselves, to use their voice to write. Thank you to Professor Ananda Lal and the Writers' Workshop for publishing this important anthology, especially in this moment in history. We know the Indian English publishing industry has met with a setback. Let's call a spade a spade. The pandemic hasn't been kind to any of us, but especially poetry publishing in India and English poetry publishing in India has met with a setback. So thank you for bringing this anthology to us. Thank you to all our esteemed panelists and guests for offering your comments and observations on Smeetha's work. Some people had to unfortunately leave because of other commitments, but thank you to everyone who also stayed on. Paramita Di, Baisali Di, Dr. Keditsu, thank you so much for the insights that you shared with us today, along with the poetry that you read. Also want to thank the guests who could not stay on but were with us. Lily, always a joy to hear you. Always a joy to, I'm so sorry, Shweta is here with us as well today. And I could, as I said, I am not to be trusted with technology. It could be 2 years, it could be 20 years, and I'll still be struggling with it. Just because your video was off, I couldn't see you. I'm so sorry. Lily, as I was saying, thank you for bringing the evening to a close by sharing your work with us. Once again, Smeetha, thanks for creating this virtual space for us to launch this important anthology. Over to you for the final note this evening, Smeetha.
Thank you very much, Somrita Urni, for being such a wonderful host for the sessions of invited speakers. Thank you, Baisali, Paramita, and most of all, thanks to all the revered professors, family, friends of Sonali who joined in with their precious time and attention. And finally, a huge congratulations to Sonali Pattnaik for creating this book, and to Writers' Workshop for bringing it out to people who adore poetry. Each of their works is a work of art. Each of their publications is a work of art, and this is another one of them. And special thank you, Urni, to you. And of course, the main thanks for the Finale-Grand-Mehfil, Lily Swarn, for bringing us such wonderful multilingual poetry that enchants us always. And I'm glad, Urni, that you insisted on the Urdu one, which is one of our favorites always. Yeah, and I'm so glad you finally also read yours. Yeah, so that added so much to all the thought and the poetry that Sonali presented throughout the evening and everybody related to. Unfortunately, my technology was very, very,
challenged today. As always, you know how it happened. So I am in the last room now, hidden in a corner so that it doesn't, interfere with the computer which is recording the event right now. And my cats are making a ruckus. So I'm trying to mute them also in the process. And I hope they're not audible. So I'm so glad we have come to the moment of this wonderful matrix by everyone's presence. I cannot thank you enough. So thank you from me personally and from we. Yeah. And Sonali, want to say goodbye and thank you. Session on that note.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Smeetha. Thank you, Somrita. The way you conducted this thing with so much poise and such passion, it was beautiful, so much grace, It's one thing to write, but it's another one to hold a collective like this together. My deepest thanks to everyone who's joined. I'm really, really so grateful. I'm speechless. Thei, Shweta, Baisali, the things that you've brought to the table, the way you added to the poems with the kinds of things you said, the things you amplified, the way you bared your heart, what you said about yourself, because all of this comes together. A poem in itself is nothing. It's the way it's read and the way it's passed on. So I think that's what this gathering has done for me, and hopefully for women, for daughters, for everyone, for young men. Why just women? They benefit from feminism too. They benefit from women being safe, and the word that Somrita does not want to use, but empowered, or just women walking their own true paths in life. If we can do that, and so thank you so much, all of you. Thank you, Lily, for the beautiful poems, and Somrita, I loved the poem you shared. It really resonated with me. A lot of the lines resonated with, yes, a lot of things that I say. So if women can recognize other forms of love other than, the popular cultural heteropatriarchal love that we are sold, yes, we'll all be better for it. So thank you everyone, who's joined today. You made my day, you made my year, everything. I can't pay back the debt. Thank you, Smeetha. If you can hear me, it's a very special thanks to you for all the work that you have put into, make this happen with all the difficulties, tech and otherwise. I owe you a lifetime of thanks, really. I don't know how to pay that back. Maybe another book of poetry. Yeah. All right.
Everyone, good night and see you at the next WE event. Bye-bye.
Yes, bye-bye. Good night, everyone. Bye. Bye, Tika. Bye, Baisali. Bye, Paramita. Anna, thank you. Bye.
Bye, bye, Sonali.
Bye. Thank you for attending. Smeetha, thank you so much. I cannot say this.
Most welcome. I'm so glad it went off.
It went off so well. Thank you so much. It's all your hard work, nothing else. It's all your hard work, really. So I don't know. I couldn't see who all joined on page 2, but I think, yeah, almost everyone invited. So thank you, Smeetha, really from the bottom of my heart. I don't know how to. I'll let you go. Yeah, I can't hear you. But yeah, I'll let you go to your cats and everything, It's been a long evening.